Tonight, a man shot dead by police in Townsville. Officers say he was armed with a knife. Graziers rejoice as the big wet transforms outback Queensland, and the southeast is on flood watch too. Australia pauses funding to a key UN agency in Gaza over alleged links to the Hamas attacks. And the West Indies pull off an extraordinary upset at the Gabba. Good evening, Jessica Van Vonderen with ABC News. A 26-year-old man has been shot dead by police in Townsville. Police say they first tried to use a taser on the man, who was armed with a knife.
Evidence markers on a suburban Townsville street. Investigators survey the scene of a fatal police shooting.
Police performed immediate first aid and tried to render assistance. It was unsuccessful and the man unfortunately passed away.
Police went to the home just after midnight on Saturday, responding to reports of a mental health episode. It's alleged a 26-year-old man threatened officers with a knife.
Police attempted to utilise a taser to disarm this man, however that was ineffective and as a result he was shot.
Neighbours listened on as the event unfolded.
I ended up hearing was the actual gunshots. I just heard the random popping noises, so I've come running out to sort of see what's going on and seen there was a lot of cop cars.
And the cops was trying to put your hands up, but that man didn't listen, tried to escape. I just heard one and I ran. I thought the bullet's gonna come on me. I'm scared.
The Queensland Police Union wants stronger mental health support within the community to curb the possibility of future tragedy.
We need to do more for those who are suffering mental health issues and they need treatment. It is traumatic for his family, who were trying to de-escalate the situation as well, and the police officers involved.
The Ethical Standards Command is travelling to Townsville to investigate the shooting. Police say all officers had body-worn cameras on them and the footage will be handed over as part of the inquiry. Baz Ruddick, ABC News, Townsville.
A 29-year-old woman has been fatally shot north of Brisbane. It happened just after midnight at a Morayfield townhouse complex. Emergency responders found the woman with a gunshot wound to her upper body. She died at the scene. An 18-year-old Morayfield man is assisting police. Officers say the pair was known to one another.
Very confronting for police and QAS to see anyone with a gunshot wound. Despite their best attempts at CPR and first aid, unfortunately she succumbed to her injuries.
And 3 people were injured in a shooting in Brisbane CBD late last night. 2 men have been charged over the alleged attack. The police helicopter tracked them to Darra, where it's alleged they set fire to the vehicle they were travelling in. They've been charged with 30 offences, including attempted murder. Police are searching for a 3rd man they believe was involved.
It was a very targeted attack on one individual. The motivation will probably become clear over the next few days.
Outback Queensland is being transformed by ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily as it dumps heavy rain on a usually dry landscape. Roads have gone under and some towns are cut off, but graziers are celebrating. The band of rain stretches down to the southeast corner and the forecast is for more to come, with the weather system likely to hover over large parts of the state into next week.
In parts of outback Queensland, the floodwaters stretch to the horizon. It's a welcome sight for those on the land.
Without rain, this country struggles, and I know they've been getting the lockdown south and different parts of the state look at it differently, but we love it out here.
Some properties near Winton recorded more than 300 millimetres of rain in 24 hours. It's cut roads, not that locals are complaining.
Pretty happy. Lovely to see.
At Springshaw, west of Rockhampton, overnight storms lit up the sky, dumping rain and transforming the morning walk. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily have largely stalled over the state's northwest, meaning more falls are on the way.
Well, certainly a watch point for Western Queensland, with a protracted significant rain and flood event likely.
In its wake, some communities remain cut off. This bridge into Georgetown in the Gulf country collapsed before the rain hit, but floodwaters have made a temporary fix more challenging. And in Townsville, crews are working to reconnect tens of thousands of customers who've been without power in heatwave conditions for several days. In the state southeast, it's been hot too, with some areas recording their highest overnight temperatures in nearly 30 years. But by morning, there was some relief. More than 200 mils was recorded in some parts, with the potential for more to come.
Certainly a risk of 50 to 100 mil broadly over parts of the southeast in its vicinity. In fact, localised falls in excess of 200 mil could be possible.
For those eager for sunshine, they'll have to wait. Simon Cullen, ABC News, Brisbane.
To Jenny Woodward now. And Jenny, a very wet few days ahead.
Yes, indeed, Jess. And as you've heard already, some very big totals overnight around the southeast, 100 to 200 millimetres recorded. Hello, everyone. Well, the Bureau is keeping a close eye on a coastal trough, and that could bring some substantial rain to the southeast corner by Tuesday. Now, as the ground's so wet and we've got this very moist tropical air which is driving in, we can see the rivers and creeks could respond very quickly to the rain. Now, already there's been quite a lot of minor flooding, and there's a major flood warning on the Bremer River. That's the red area there. But given the conditions, the Bureau has issued a flood watch for parts of southern and central Queensland. Now, that's that big purple area there, although it doesn't include the lower Brisbane River. That's the city area at this stage. But there is still a lot of uncertainty about this system. Will it develop? And if it does, where will we see the heavy rain? So keep an eye on the warnings, as conditions could escalate quickly.
Australia and 8 other countries have suspended funding the main UN agency providing aid in Gaza after allegations emerged some staff were involved in the October 7 terrorist attacks. The agency's chief has described the funding pause as a collective form of punishment against Palestinians. It comes as a deal edges closer that could see a 2-month pause in fighting and secure the release of the remaining hostages.
Anger on the streets of Tel Aviv as Israeli police block the protesting crowds. Mounted officers confront the fury. Some are wrestled to the ground. The protesters, including the families of over 100 hostages still in Gaza, calling on their leaders to resign. They say their government isn't doing enough to bring their loved ones home.
We need to bring them back home now. We don't have time anymore.
Hamas has released new vision of Israeli hostages filmed under duress in Gaza. One nurse and 2 19-year-old soldiers kidnapped on October 7. There is some new hope. US-led negotiators are edging closer to an agreement that would see Israel pause fighting for 2 months in exchange for the release of all the hostages. But until any deal is struck, the misery for the people in Gaza continues. The biggest UN agency providing life-saving relief has come under scrutiny. UNRWA has been forced to sack several members of its staff for alleged involvement in the Hamas terrorist attack of October 7. Israeli intelligence has reportedly produced evidence that shows the UNRWA staff providing use of its vehicles and facilities. The allegations are being investigated, but Australia, along with 8 other countries, has immediately suspended funding for the agency. Foreign Minister Penny Wong labelled the allegations deeply concerning. UNRWA's chief has hit back, saying the withholding of funding is shocking and amounts to a form of collective punishment. More than 80% of Gazans have fled their homes, and they're still on the move.
We've been displaced for around 115 days, and now suddenly flyers dropped saying that certain blocks should evacuate immediately. In such weather and with little kids, where can we go?
UNRWA is pleading with countries to resume funding, warning a lifeline to 2 million people is being cut.
As he faces calls to resign, Israel's Prime Minister is also facing considerable pressure from the White House to ease his military campaign in Gaza. Here's Global Affairs editor John Lyons.
The pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here in Jerusalem is extraordinary. He's under pressure from the families of the hostages in Gaza who fear that their relatives could be killed by Israel's saturation bombing. He's under pressure from President Biden, facing re-election, who risks losing the Arab American vote in 3 key swing states. And he's under pressure from the people here, the Israeli public, who are increasingly asking, what is this war actually achieving? Something has to give, and something has to give quickly.
John Lyons reporting. Iran-backed Houthis have fired on an American warship in a major escalation of the conflict in the Red Sea. Video has also emerged of a British-linked oil tanker being struck, with the US warning of a broader conflict erupting in the region.
A fire erupts on board a British-linked oil tanker after it's struck by a Houthi missile. With 23 crew on board, the Marlin Luanda issues a distress call, with deep concern for its flammable cargo.
We had actually lost the hope that we won't be able to fight this fire.
The Indian Navy responds with backup from the US, getting the fire under control after several hours.
These guys were really tough. They have really done a tremendous job, and hats off to the Indian Navy.
It's the latest ship to be struck by the Iranian-backed Houthis, who've been attacking vessels transiting through the Red Sea in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The Houthis say this latest attack is in response to American-British aggression and follows retaliatory airstrikes from both countries inside Yemen just weeks ago. An American destroyer patrolling the Gulf of Aden, USS Carney, was also targeted but shot down the projectile. The incident marking the first time a US warship has been directly attacked.
We can't predict exactly how any one of these groups is going to respond. Do they want a broader conflict? Do you want us in a full-scale war?
The US is downplaying the escalation, and China is urging Iran to help rein in the attacks, as the Middle East grapples with its worst maritime conflict in decades. Tom Joyner, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The New South Wales Premier has warned members of a neo-Nazi group that's gathered again in Sydney today they will be exposed. About 20 men dressed in black arrived at a reserve in the city's north around 9 o'clock this morning. They were dispersed by police a short while later. Police say public safety orders have been issued to some members of the group, banning them from entering several local government areas across Sydney until midnight. It follows another similar incident on Australia Day, where officers intercepted a Sydney train after more than 60 men boarded carrying a neo-Nazi sign.
The police have the ability to unmask you, so in front of your family, your friends, your employers, co-workers, you'll be exposed as a massive racist. This is obviously distressing for many people to see this fascist, ridiculous behaviour on New South Wales streets.
I've never experienced this. I've lived here for 11 years. Never ever experienced this kind of thugs in my community.
The Prime Minister is confident his revised Stage 3 tax cuts will pass Parliament without further tweaks. People earning between $45,000 and $150,000 will get an extra $800 a year compared to the previous plan. Those on $200,000 will still get a cut, but it'll be roughly halved, down to $4,500. The changes still need to pass Parliament, with discussions underway with the Greens and Crossbench.
This is our plan. We will put it to the Parliament. We're putting it through, we will put it first to the House of Representatives. We will put it to the Senate. And I'm very, very confident that people will look at the two plans which are there.
Queensland Labor MP Jim Madden has quit state parliament to run in the local council elections. He was first elected as the member for Ipswich West in 2015 and last year announced he would not contest the state election in October. In a letter sent to the Labor caucus yesterday, Mr Madden announced his intention to resign, effective immediately, to run for the Ipswich City Council. His decision will trigger a by-election to be held in March. Well, the majority of economists are predicting the Reserve Bank to start cutting interest rates later this year. But as Alan Kohler explains, a unique problem confronting Australia could see borrowers waiting another year for any rate relief.
The big economic question for 2024 is whether the Reserve Bank will start cutting interest rates this year. Futures market traders and most economists think it will. I'm not so sure about that, but what does the RBA itself think? Well, its most recent economic forecasts assume that interest rates will be 1% lower than they are now by the end of 2025. They don't say when that process begins, but I'd say we're talking next year. So what were those economic forecasts for the end of 2024? Inflation, 3.3%, down from 5.4. Unemployment, 4.2%, up from 3.9. GDP growth, 2%, down from 2.1. Now, if the Reserve Bank thinks it's going to make those numbers by the end of the year, there'll probably be rate cuts. If they don't, there won't be. It's as simple as that.
What's not so simple is Australia's unique problem. Although the Reserve Bank of Australia has hiked interest rates less than the US and the UK, our mortgage rates overall have gone up much more because we've got more variable rate loans than anyone else. As a result, there's been a huge increase in the number of Australians going backwards. Meanwhile, our population is growing faster than anyone else's, creating the illusion of economic growth, even though there are plenty of people having recessions of their own. So Australia's interest rates will be cut less than most countries.
But look, we'll get inflation down without a recession, and that's rare and good, as long as you're not one of those having a personal recession.
18 months after cannabis was decriminalised in Thailand, the new government has vowed to end its recreational use. Authorities want to restrict it to medicinal purposes only, releasing a draft bill which outlines hefty fines and prison sentences for offenders. Doctors have welcomed the move, but the owners of the thousands of dispensaries that have sprung up and the farmers who supply them are worried.
What was once unimaginable is now unavoidable. 18 months after Thailand became the first country in Asia to decriminalise cannabis, more than 1 million people have registered to grow it and over 6,000 dispensaries have opened to sell it.
It's kind of like cowboy a little bit at the moment that everyone is doing kind of like whatever they want. You know, even like as a company, I think we're looking forward to kind of like a little bit of tightening up.
Pasit Chulajata had been working at a cannabis farming business since the drug was legalised for medicinal purposes in 2018. But even the budding industry itself was shocked when it was decriminalised.
Honestly, we were as surprised. Even, you know, as a person that's been in the industry, we were really, really surprised.
The new government has now released draft legislation which would end recreational use and limit it to medicinal purposes, and crack down on so-called cannabis cowboys.
There's been some like negative pushback, but I think the government is on the verge to kind of like tighten it up, which can help, you know, protect people that need to be protected, like young kids.
The move has been welcomed by doctors who say they're dealing with the impacts of the weed boom.
Tea time of the patient go to the hospital because of the side effect of the cannabis.
Dr. Smith is a forensic toxicologist and part of his job is screening dead bodies for traces of illicit drugs. At his hospital, in the first 3 months after legalisation, 126 people were admitted after using cannabis. 7 of them were intubated, 1 died.
The cannabis is not perfectly safe. Someone have the side effect to the cannabis, like the psychosis or something like that. And someone use it and have like the heart attack and die.
Cannabis or weed can't kill people. No way, man.
Dispensary managers like Top believe some of the health claims are exaggerated, but he agrees some regulation is needed.
We need more like a real action from the government, what we can do or what we cannot do, or what we can really sell or what we cannot sell.
It's hard to walk down the streets of Bangkok without seeing or smelling this booming industry. It was estimated that by 2025 it'd be worth about 2 billion Australian dollars, but it's unclear what these new regulations will mean for business.
I think Thailand has come quite a bit too far, for everything to go back. And I think the government kind of know that as well. And I think we can do really well, to help to use cannabis as to boost the economy. And I think they also know that.
Top says his business will comply with any new laws, but it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle.
It's about the love, about the passion, and then about the sharing. If you are the real smoker, if you are you call the cannabis lover, you will know what I'm talking about, my man. You will know, brah.
The Thai Cabinet will now assess the draft legislation and public submissions before the bill goes before Parliament. Lauren Day, ABC News, Bangkok.
The West Indies have pulled off a historic win, beating Australia by 8 runs in the second cricket test at the Gabba, their first test victory in Australia since 1997. Second gamer Shamar Joseph, playing with a foot injury, tore through Australia's batters, taking 7 wickets as Australia was bowled out for 207. Steve Smith finished unbeaten on 91.
After Australia lost 2 wickets late on day 3, day 4 was set for a fascinating tussle. The hosts requiring 156 runs, the West Indies needing to take 8 wickets, assuming the rain stayed away. The tourists kept the scoring down in the opening half hour, but then things loosened in the field.
Oh no.
In humid conditions, Steve Smith and Cameron Green received numerous drinks.
More drinks.
Which the umpires monitored closely to keep the game moving.
I think umpire Menon's going to come down and say, hurry up, boys.
The introduction of Shamar Joseph, who was playing with a toe injury, got things going.
Catch it! No, too high, too quick. 4 more.
Green looked comfortable in the middle as Australia closed in on victory.
That's a classic strike.
Until Joseph cracked the door open for the tourists.
Oh, Bowl, that's a ripper.
That brought Travis Head to the crease following his first innings golden duck.
Oh, it's King Bear for Travis Head. Shamar Joseph. Can you believe what we're seeing here at the Gabba?
Smith's time as an opener has been underwhelming, but the veteran showed a glimpse of what he can offer with a well-constructed half-century. But Joseph kept his side's hopes alive.
Yes, he's done it! It's away, big catch, big wicket!
With the game on a knife's edge, Alzari Joseph dropped Nathan Lyon before removing him with the very next ball. Smith tried to club Australia to victory. But at the other end, Josh Hazlewood couldn't keep out Shamar Joseph.
I feel like we win the series. Even though it's 1-1, I feel like we win the entire series with this test. And it's really amazing for my teammates. Must give up another shout out to them. They're really encouraging. And, I'm glad that I make them proud.
It's the West Indies' first test win in Australia since 1997. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
South Africa have secured a first victory over Australia in any format, defeating the hosts by 6 wickets in their second T20 international in Canberra. The Proteas restricted Australia to a total of 6 for 142. Grace Harris, the top scorer, with a late cameo of 31 runs. Skipper Laura Volvaert anchored the innings for South Africa with the bat, scoring an unbeaten half-century. Chloe Tryon knocked the winning boundary in the 19th over. The multi-format series continues with a third T20 international in Hobart on Tuesday. In tennis, the Australian Open is reaching its climax tonight with the men's final playing out at Melbourne Park. In the meantime, Aryna Sabalenka spent her night celebrating, having won back-to-back singles titles. And Matt Ebden continued Australia's dominance in the men's doubles when he won the final alongside 43-year-old partner Rohan Bopanna. This morning, Sabalenka paraded her silverware in front of the media and fans in Melbourne.
Guys, watch out.
Cheers to the champ. Showered in glory 2 years running, the Australian Open Queen posed at the Royal Exhibition Gardens, embracing a trophy her and her team have barely put down.
I mean, of course it was my idea. I put them under pressure to make this video happen.
Sabalenka does things her own way and says prioritising having fun has been key to her success.
Yeah, I have, I would say, the craziest team. And as I said on the interview, we all had a little drink.
On the court, though, Sabalenka is ruthless. Her powerful win over China's Qinwen Zheng put a full stop on a perfect tournament in which she did not drop a set.
Sabalenka defends the title.
The star Belarusian became the first woman to defend her title in more than a decade. Sabalenka paid tribute to her late father. Together, they set a goal of winning 2 Grand Slams before she turned 25.
You're my biggest motivation, and everything I'm doing for you.
Zheng's disappointment was palpable, but the 21-year-old will break into the top 10 tomorrow as her star at home and abroad continues to rise.
It's my first final and I'm feeling a little bit pity, but that's how it is.
And an Australian has tasted title success this year. Matt Ebden and India's Rohan Bopanna claimed the doubles crown, winning in straight sets. At 43 years old, Bopanna is the oldest man in the Open era to win a major men's doubles title.
You definitely, got to know how old I am, I'm sure.
Age truly really is not even a number for this guy.
Ebden's victory made it 3 consecutive years of Australian men lifting the doubles trophy. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
Australia will take on England in the final of the Netball Nations Cup after a clean sweep of victories in the pool stage. Australia faced Uganda for the first time in history in their final group game and were challenged early by one of world netball's big improvers. Australia settled from there though, with Donnell Wallam's accurate shooting leading them to a 14-point win. In the later game, a key intercept by England in the dying seconds helped them clinch a dramatic 1-point win over New Zealand. That set up a rematch of last year's World Cup final with Australia. Weather now with Jenny Woodward. And Jenny, what is going on with the heat?
It's pretty awful, isn't it, Jess? Hello, everyone. Record-breaking heat across the southeast last night. Tewantin on 27 had its warmest night on record, and Gympie followed closely with 27.2. But it was the high dew points that made it feel very uncomfortable. So what's the dew point? Well, that's the temperature to which air must be cooled in order to produce condensation or dew. So the higher the dew point means the greater the moisture content in the air, and that's what adds to the steamy, sultry or muggy feeling that we get on these hot days and nights. Cairns today, the figures range from 27 to 34. It got to 35 in Rockhampton and 37 in Longreach. 30 in Brisbane with the dew point on 24.7, while it was 24 overnight, and currently we're still sitting on 27 degrees. Townsville was looking green and lush in the wake of the cyclone. Thanks, Carmel, for this lovely photo. While Sharon could see a rare waterfall on the mountain near Springshaw after more than 90 millimetres overnight. And it looked like Phillip was at a seagull conference at Fingal Beach, which is just south of the border, but I'll allow it. Now let's look at the satellite, and you can pick up the big storm areas across the state, and we have had severe cells through the day, and they continue now in the Central Highlands and coalfields and down into the Maranoa. And there's also been widespread activity across the top end and into the Kimberley. Alice Springs is heading for 40 degrees tomorrow. It'll be a sunny 31 in Adelaide, 32 that is in Canberra, and 29 for Sydney with just a light shower or two. Now let's take a look at the chart, and we've got 2 main systems, the ex-cyclone and the inland trough. So these 2 systems are pulling in all of that tropical moisture and giving us the hot, sweaty weather. Now the ex-cyclone is only moving very slowly about the northwest, so the heavy rain is going to persist along with the flooding, while we'll have showers, storms and rain areas ahead of the inland trough, with the risk of that coastal trough bringing significant falls in the next few days, but still uncertainty about that. Now on to forecasts, and the severe weather warning continues for heavy rain in the northwest in an area from about Cloncurry to Boulia and almost east to Winton, while there'll be showers and storms elsewhere, and of course it's staying hot. Inland, widespread unstable weather, but the focus is likely to be in a pocket around St George, Gundawindi and Roma, where we could see falls of 150 millimetres or more. In the southeast, showers, rain heavy at times and potential severe storms, top of 25 in Toowoomba, 30 for Gympie. And for Brisbane, rain, the chance of a storm, heavy falls are possible, 29 the top and up to 45 millimetres possible. On the bay, east-southeasterlies to 15 knots easing through the day, And looking ahead, the Bureau have got 90 millimetres possible on the forecast for Tuesday, Jess, but then conditions will ease later in the week. But still, we do have uncertainty, so keep a close eye on the forecast.
Oh, thanks, Jenny. That's news for now. Good night.
Good night.